No new bells and whistles, in keeping with the requirements of the track. It's supposed to be retro, right? So your early 70s sort of sound. Not a lot of processing on the guitars, on the bass, or on anything really. It's all mainly straight recording, a little bit of reverb. One of the things that surprised me is that Geezer used a fretless bass for this song. I told him not to use a 5-string because that's pretty much all he has now is 5-string basses, but he had a 4-string fretless. He decided to use that and it turned out really good. He used a little bit of pedal processing on it, like a distortion for the heavy part and stuff like that, and that's in keeping with the tradition. What happens with the song is that a little bit more of a fusion or a Canterbury style to it. It could have gone in another direction had he used like a fretted bass. Also the guitar, Tristan was very attentive to not using any of the processing that he's come to use nowadays. Basically just used mainly a guitar and an amp and maybe a distortion pedal or something like that, but just using like the tone of the guitar to create the solos and the rhythm guitar that he's playing. Al just played like he plays because it's perfectly in keeping with any period of time, really. I mean, you know, he can play like early 70s drummers and he can play like more contemporary drummers. But he took all the dead ringers off so that you could hear the fuller sound of the drums, which was a good idea because it sounds more retro. I like to be able to hear the drums and the resonance, and it's easier to mix as far as I'm concerned. And the keyboards, well, I cheated all over the place. I didn't have a grand piano, but I had a good digital piano. I didn't have a real Mellotron, and I used the best samples I could find. They were out of tune, you know, they sound hissy and scratchy, and notice there's a lot of Mellotron in there. The organ, I used the Hammond. I used the real clavinet. What we did to make it sound beefier, we amplified it through the guitar rig to get more of a tube sound out of the clavinet. And we did the same with the organ too. When you use the combination Hammond and Leslie speaker cabinet, you get a very clean sound most of the time. You have to be able to overdrive the organ into the speaker in order to get the raw, heavy Hammond sound. So we didn't cheat that way. A perfect example is John Lord. If you want a John Lord sound, you have to amplify your Hammond with a stack of Marshall amplifiers, because guitar amplifiers is what gave him that signature sound, really crunchy sound on the Hammond. So that's what we did. And there's no vocals. We didn't have to pull any tricks on that. The trick in our case was, because it's an instrumental piece, we had to convey the idea, or at least the mood of the 33rd canto of Inferno in a 7-minute song, and I hope we've achieved that. We're the penultimate song on the collection. It'll be very interesting to hear which band's interpretation of these songs and this concept is. I'm very much looking forward to hearing that, the result, and see how our song fits in. It starts very peacefully. I decided, because I could have gone a couple of different ways. Because we're in the 9th ring of hell, it could have been really chaotic, it could have been really ugly. And, you know, I was thinking about what I read about it, what I read of it. What struck me the most was the hopelessness and the sadness of not being able to cry. That's what stuck out with me the most. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to write something that to me feels like that person who doesn't have the ability or the comfort of being able to cry. And that's what came out. But then, of course, you know, a third of the way into the song, the suddenly kicks in and it gets really chaotic, and the proggy goodness comes out and clap. That's about halfway through. We've had to get together and mix the tracks and then burn a copy for everybody so that they could take it with them and listen to it at home on different headphones or on their stereo, just to get a different sound. And then they send the feedback and then we get together again and bash away at it some more. And we got emails from everybody pursuant to last night's mixing session. Everybody's in agreement. What's wrong with it or what's not perfect with it is consistent with everybody. Got to pull back the bass a little bit. Got to beef up the drums a little bit, especially in the high end. Tighten in the keyboard during the heavy part, so that the mellotron on the outside stands out more. The guitar solo needs to come down just a little bit. Hopefully in the end we have something that everybody's happy with.